Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending where you are at. I'm Aisha from On Time Training and Consultancy Services. I am one of their lead trainers and the strategic partner for training and advisory. I conduct their PMP, PPA, ACP, and CPMAI programs. And today we are in the session number 7 of our PMP mini marathon series. So with that, we can get started. We will be using our chat box today to put the answers in. Unfortunately, there's some issue with the poll thing in Zoom. I tried to sort it out, but couldn't. So we'll just use chat for our answers. Okay, 1.5 minutes for each answer. Let's get started. Okay, let's go through the question. A team has been working for 6 months on a new digital claims processing platform for an insurance company. So the team has, it's all the project is already in progress and execution, and we just have this context up front. During a governance meeting, the sponsor mentions that a senior manager from another business unit has raised concerns about the system's stability, right? So they are having some quality complaints over here, right? So this is basically a complaint from another senior stakeholder about the quality of the deliverable created so far. The senior manager claims the one who's complaining, the senior manager claims that recent demonstrations showed repeated failures in key workflows and that several serious problems have remained unresolved across multiple iterations, right? So there's an ongoing pattern of failures and defects maybe, and it's not being fixed. Which two options should the project manager use to prepare a response to the project sponsor, right? In this case, again, we have to think from a mindset that, okay, what will the project manager do first? Like there are consistent complaints coming in and there are failures and everything. So we know the question is about monitoring and controlling the quality, right? So what are the two options that the project manager would help the project manager assess the issue accurately and report it accordingly, right? So we have a couple of options: defect count, a risk metric, issue log, changes in technical debt, right? So let us look at the responses. In this case, the correct response would be the defect count, right? The first thing that the project manager should go look at is the quality data, right? Over here, we know the scenario is that a senior manager of maybe another department, other unit is making a complaint. The first action we need to take according to the PMI mindset is validate those claims, right? And defect count is a technique. We have studied this. It shows how many defects exist and what are their severity levels, and if that number is increasing or decreasing, right? Defect count is one of the quality metrics, right? So this is something that is the project manager will do. They will take an account of the defect count first, right? And the concern is also there. We saw in the question, if you look at the statement, that there's a serious concern that problems have remained unsolved across multiple issues, right? So we know that this problem has already occurred. It's not a risk anymore. If something remains unresolved time over time, then it is definitely an issue, right? It's happening on the project during execution, right? So the issue log will show us okay, just give me a moment. The issue log will show us what the problem is, who the person responsible is, who's supposed to resolve this issue, who's going to own it, what's the priority and severity of the issue, what's the status, what are the target resolution dates, what is the escalation history, what actions have been taken so far. Recall the structure of an issue log, right? So this will allow further to deep dive into those issues, and the project, it will enable the project manager to explain whether the concern is valid and to what extent it is valid, and what are the action steps, what are the workarounds we have we are going to take and we are taking actively to resolve the issue, and whether there is an escalation is actually required in this case or not, right? So these are the two most important things that you'll do in such a scenario, right? Risk metric, this is not a risk situation to begin with. The issue is ongoing, right? The existing work, existing bugs, existing problems in the deliverable quality, right? And some unresolved problems as well. So this is not a risk metric. It maybe some secondary risks are arising, or some we are uncovering some information that may be valuable for future risk forecasting, but not the current problem, right? Changes, we know that changes on their own will not help. It's going to be, a change log will just show you, a change record will just show you the, okay, what were the proposed changes, what was approved, what was rejected, how the baselines were updated or whatever. So nowhere in the question, none of the stakeholders are telling us that there's some issue with the scope, or some baseline has shifted. Nothing of the sort is happening in the question. Technical debt, well, it definitely does contribute to defects and maintainability problems, system stability problems. But this, nowhere in the question it is mentioned that this is what the sponsor or the stakeholder is pinpointing at, right? So the sponsor needs an explanation about the bugs or the problems that are making the system unstable, and the unresolved issues, right? Why they're occurring over and over again. So in this case, defect count and issue log provide that evidence more directly. Okay. I would encourage everyone to please put your answers in the chat box. It's okay to have different sorts of opinion at this point. Let's take a look at question number 2.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So in the question, so it's a long question. In summary, I can tell that what I got from the question, that the definition of done was not clarified, and that's what I found in option D, that they need to work with the PO to break down the stories. Definitely, we need stories very small, to the point and precise. And also we need to update the definition of done, and that's why I chose option D.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you so much. See, the PMI would at times not give you explicit information, but it sometimes does give you this 3 to 4 line context, question context, and the answer, like, to this would maybe something be very simple at point, and maybe sometimes it's a complex answer, but you should be prepared for such lengthy questions, right? So in this question, that they have described a project that an agile team is developing, and we know that, okay, over the last 3 iterations, the stories that were selected were incomplete during the iteration review, and but we know that the information radiators show steady activity through the iterations, and there are different team members who contributed to the unfinished stories, right? So within the
January, Siapira, the Lukat.
Okay, so the, you know that the entire team is working and there's no single member who's responsible or through which this incompleteness is coming from, right? And they conduct a usual retro, which is like what agile teams do after a review. And they know that there is no other external issue that have affected the unfinished stories, but they do notice that there were some business rules, system components, and the definition of done somehow varied, right? How they interpreted validation, testing, and acceptance in different ways. Maybe the team members had different team members had different understanding, or they had different understanding from what the PO had, right? So this is something whenever validation is involved, testing is involved, acceptance is involved, you upfront need to decide the definition of done, right? We know there are three measurement techniques: the definition of ready, definition of done, and the acceptance criteria, right? In this case, it is clear that the team and the product owner had not had a very good, rigorous discussion, right? And therefore, that confusion has resulted in unfinished stories. So now the team needs to sit down with the product owner and break the stories further, look at their sizing and estimation and everything in the backlog, and also update the definition of done, right? That is why D is the correct response. Why are the others incorrect? Put the stories back into backlog and wait for a less intensive iteration to work off them. No, that is going to diminish the business value, right? You don't, in agile, we don't work on which iteration is less work intensive or which iteration is more work intensive. We work on backlog priorities that are going to bring in the business value. Use the next iteration for a team spike to determine feasibility of completing stories. This is not a question of feasibility, right? The question clearly shows, let us go back. Okay. The question clearly shows that validation, testing, and acceptance was not as defined and as discussed upfront as it should have been. We know that spike are used when you are performing complex project, some high risk project where the feasibility is in question, where there's a lot of uncertainty, or there's a new technology that the team has not worked upon, in those kind of scenarios, right? So the technical robustness is known, right? The technical expectations are known in this case, right? It is the incompleteness arises from maybe inefficient story sizing, complexity, or some expectations that were not clarified in the initial stages, in the planning stages. Put the stories in the blocked column and work with the product owner to remove impediments, right? We know from the scenario that there are no impediments, there are no blockers, or there are no approvals that the team is waiting for, right? So, moving it into a blocked common will send a wrong messaging to the stakeholders, right? It will not highlight the exact issue, right? The issue over here is backlog refinement. It should have been done earlier, and a clearer definition of done. Let us move to question number 3. Okay, let us do it. A product owner is leading a team for a national bank's new SME lending platform. The team has delivered several high quality increments over multiple iterations, including an eligibility questionnaire, document upload capacity, internal review notes, dashboard filters, and automated notification templates. Like, these are all the deliverables that they've delivered. Team velocity is stable, defects are low, and stakeholders regularly praise the demonstrations, right? However, during a quarterly benefits review, right? Benefits review. The chief commercial officer raises a concern. Loan officers are still using manual workarounds for most applications, right? Only a small portion of customers complete the digital journey, and the delivered capabilities have not meaningfully reduced approval time or increased loan conversion rates. So you see that, okay, the work is going as defined, as expected, features are being created, deliverables are being delivered, and the team is also stable, there are no defects, and demos are being praised, right? But the chief commercial officer, somebody who's reviewing the would be a key person reviewing the benefits the project is achieving so far, right? They are raising a concern that, okay, these are the things that are happening, negative things that are happening, or not, some things that, some positive things that are not happening, right? The officers are still using manual solutions for applications. Only a small segment, a small percentage of the customers have moved to the digital solution, and the intended results somehow have not been achieved. We have not been we have not been able to reduce the approval time and increase the loan conversion benefits. These are the two benefits that he has identified specifically that they have not been achieved so far. The executive notes that the team is producing outputs, but the bank is not yet seeing a sustainable business return from the product, right? So work is apparently is being done and being produced. There are no issues in delivery. There are no like high defects or anything. Then how should the product owner address this problem? Remember, this question is about the product owner, not the project manager, right? Okay, define a minimum viable product, MVP, with the team and prioritize relevant backlog items. Okay. Um, we do that to deliver business value. MVP is just the bare bones structure, but it offers a working functionality, and it's delivered for early feedback, and to a smaller set of users, it is usually floated around. Reduce the number of team members as necessary to guarantee a positive return on investment. Let us see, this doesn't make any sense, and we'll discuss why. Identify minimum marketable features and prioritize relevant backlog items. This could be a possibility. Work with the project manager to run a retrospective and perform project cancellation. Some some confusing options, but some purely nonsensical options, like you don't cancel the project. It's not a project cancellation scenario over here at all, right? So the correct way to go in this case would be that the product owner identifies that what is the feature that is going to bring us business value, and introducing that feature, they prioritize in the relevant work, the relevant scope in the backlog items, right? In the backlog itself. What is a minimum marketable feature? We have discussed when we talk about business value, delivering business value, it may be delivered through three kinds of artifacts: an MVP, minimum viable product, an MMF, which is a minimum marketable feature, and an MBI, which is a minimum business increment, right? During this mini marathon, we will not go into explanation of all three. We'll just compare what MMF and MVP are, and why does MMF makes sense in this case, right? See, minimum marketable features are small, self-contained features that you can develop quickly, right, and deliver significant value to the user by shipping them out, right, by rolling them out into the market, right? So it is the concern over here is that that although the work is progressing as intended, but this is a benefits review, and a stakeholder is complaining that there are some things that are not being accomplished. So the best way to go about is like not build another MVP altogether, but introduce a feature to realize those benefits, right? The product owner should identify what those features are. What are the minimum marketable features, right? A self-contained feature that can help us deliver these things, like that can help us reduce the approval time and increase the loan conversion rates, right? What feature can we develop to address these problems? That is the question is about, right? So minimum marketable features can the PO is going to identify them, and these will create usable, releasable, revenue generating or operation and operational value. And once these features have been identified for those two specific objectives, we are going to align the backlog items related to them and prioritize them. Why is this not an MVP, right? Distractor A is define an MVP with the team and prioritize backlog items, right? MVP we know is the smallest first release, or just a small experiment that upfront that we can validate some value assumptions, right? And MVP has very few features, very few requirements. In this scenario, we have noticed that the team is already executing. They've already delivered multiple increments. In the first part of the question, let's go back. We know that the team has already delivered these high quality increments. What are these high quality increments? This is the MVP, right? Since they've delivered the MVP already, so MVP will not fit into the equation in this case, right? So it's not just about, we are not trying to validate whether this product is a good idea or not. We are talking about increasing the benefits delivery, right? Increasing the value, right? Obtaining that value, obtaining those benefits, right? Which we could easily do through a MMF. Reduce the number of teams members. No, this is like just on a short-term basis, you want to do a band-aid fix. This is not going to work, right? This is not solving the problem of value delivery in this case, right? Of benefits realization in this case. Work with the project manager to run a retrospective and perform project cancellation. See, retrospective would be a good thing, definitely. But the latter part of the response indicates that you conduct a retrospective and cancel the project out. So we don't cancel things out just like that after doing a retrospective. This would be an extreme step, so we are not going to take it. Okay, let us look at question number 4. An agile team is planning, An agile team is planning the next iteration for a regulatory reporting module. The product owner has already ordered the backlog based on compliance priority and business value, right? So it's a prioritized backlog we are talking about. The team velocities for the last 5 iterations were 16, 26, 22, 34, and 25 story points, right? So you are now given, of how the team performed from a velocity perspective in the previous iterations. These are the last 5 ones. No major team capacity change is expected for the next iteration. The ordered backlog contains the following stories. A is worth 7 points, B is worth 9 points, C is user stories, like C is worth 5 points, D 13, E 8, F 3, G 11, and A 6, right? Based on the team's historical velocity, these are the historical velocities, and the backlog, this is what the current prioritized backlog looks like. Which set of stories should the team most reasonably select for the next iteration, right? So there are two parts to it, right? And then you're given some options, whether they should select A, B, C, F, B, D, F, A, C, E, H, or none of the above, right? So what are we going to do? I would want everyone to take a close look of what we are doing over here. The first thing we are going to calculate is the team's average velocity over the past 5 iterations, right? In this case, we know from the question that this was 18, 26, 22, 34, and 25 story points, right? We are going to add them up. And since we are going to take out an average, these are 25 story points is the average velocity, right? So we know that, okay, if 25 story points should be the average velocity for the upcoming iteration, we should select a combination of stories that totals to um, that totals to mm, 25 story points. So assuming that there is no capacity change, right? So we know that A, B, C, and F, if we select, it's going to be 24 story points. But we also know that it's not accounting to, it's not adding up to 25 story points. C, so we have a comment. Oh, you got it. Got it. Okay. See, what you need to look at is that the question mentions an ordered backlog, right? So you have to pick a combination that is prioritized, right? So if we go and look back, right, the priority would be in this manner, like A, B, C, D, E, F, because it says the ordered backlog, right? This is the prioritized backlog, right? There may be other combinations you can spot which will still be near to 25, but we are not going to choose them. Why? Because the question says that this is an ordered backlog. So you have to choose you have to factor in the high priority stories in this case, right? So we are going to take A, B, C, and F, and it's going to be equal to 24 story points, right? Option B was B, D, F, right? B was 9, D was 13, and F was 3, right? And the total over here would actually be exactly 25 story points, right? This is an exact match to the average velocity, right? But what is this option doing? What is this option doing? It's skipping A and C, right? So it's directly jumped to B and it's then directly jumped to D. So it's not accounting A and C into the picture, right? You are not going to do a random combination and reach to the velocity number. That is not the entire goal of the sprint or the iteration itself. So there are two concepts we are discussing over here: figuring out what the next velocity is going to be, but then also keeping that we build stories that are going to add business value, which have been prioritized in the backlog, right? So I hope everyone got the difference, that why are we not choosing this response B, and why have we opted for A, right? So we are going to figure out, okay, if we take a combination of A, B, C, and F, that's going to be equal to 24 story points. But if we take B, D, F, it's going to be exactly 25, but not on prioritized backlog. If we take A, C, E, H, this will it's crossing over the team's average velocity, and it is also skipping the user story B, which is high priority. D, none of the above. No, we have an option that is driven in a rational way, and it gives you a very close idea of what the next iteration is going to look like, what velocity is going to look like in the sixth iteration. So we are going to move with that. Please let me know if it's clear now for everyone. I know it's a trick question. Okay. let us take this. Yes, Zulkarnain, you had a question.
Yeah. So in option A, our total story points are 24 and they are ordered. That's why we chose option A.
Yes.
What if option A, the total story points are 30? Then are we allowed to also choose option B?
Uh, See, why would you add them all up to 30? You will go with the number that is closest to the closest to the current velocity, current average velocity. Why would
Yeah.
you go there and
Mhm.
choose additional stories? You will stop. Like, see, if A and B were only, like, making it to 24 or 25 or 23 story points even, right? You will stop there. You won't then go forward. Or in the practical scenario, you would actually split the user stories. And if there were such huge user stories that you are only covering one or two.
No, I was talking about from the exam context that
Yes,
in case if the order backlog, so if one option has the correct order, but
yes.
the wrong number of stories or number of story point, and the second one has the wrong order but the correct story point. So which one has high priority, the order or the story point?
The you tell me from a practical perspective and then from a exam perspective. For the first and foremost, again from the exam perspective, not just looking at a microscopic level of velocity, but looking at the broader agile perspective, it will always be important to address the business value delivery items, right? That's what you want to pick first, no matter what. That's the rule of thumb.
Okay, thank you.
Even in the exam. Does
Okay,
that make
clear.
sense? Clear?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
But this odd when see, this question was a, like, an edge case. Why? Because the word ordered backlog is over here, right? The word ordered backlog is over here, right? If you had no indication that it is a prioritized backlog, right? And it just said these are the stories in the product backlog, right? Just that, and there was no indication that this is the exact sequence in which they are prioritized. Then you would have opted for option B, right? Since there's an additional context, there's an additional angle to it, that is why we have moved there to that option. Just a friendly tip on the on solving questions. There will be no GPT, there will be no Claude on the exam. So when you're practicing, refrain from, like, going there at the first go and getting the answer. Attempt it. Utilize your own rationale. Utilize your own knowledge. Look at it from multiple angles, and then first try to figure it out yourself. Okay. Let us look at this question. A team is working on claims automation platform for a multinational insurance company. After several iterations, the team velocity has stabilized at 24 story points per iteration, right? So they're over the volatility period, and their velocities have stabilized. Uh, the refined product backlog contains 725 story points of remaining work, right? So that's how much work is remaining in the entire product backlog. Out of this, the product owner has identified 276 story points as the minimum scope required for the next market release, right? So there are a total of 725 points worth of product backlog that needs to be delivered as a whole, but out of which some prioritized scope has been identified for the next release. That's worth 276 story points. Assuming the team's velocity remains stable and no major scope changes are introduced, how many iterations will it take to complete the entire delivery, and how many iterations will it take to complete the next release? So there are two things we're calculating over here, right? The entire delivery and the release itself, right? And we need to figure out the iteration count for them. right? And we have different combinations like, okay, 3112, and these are respectively for the delivery and the release, right? That is what is implied over here. 3112, 3011, 3111, 19, and 12, right? Let us look at some calculations. The correct response in this case, as most of us have pointed out, is actually A, right? And how are we reaching to this A? We know that the current velocity is 24, and we know the formula for calculating the number of iterations is dividing the total story points by the current velocity, the average velocity, right? And if the resultant number is a decimal or a fraction or whatever, we have to round it up, because even if there's partial amount of remaining work, like whatever work remains, which exceeds, which cannot be fulfilled, it will move on to the next iteration, right? So how are we going to calculate this? Two things required. First, for the entire delivery, right? How many iterations are required? We know total product backlog is 725 story points and the velocity is 24. 725 divided by 24 is 30.2. Notice that this is a decimal value, right? So you cannot complete the full delivery in 30 iterations, because if like 30 into 24 would be what, 720 per story points, which is different from the 70. There's still 5 story points that cannot be worked in 30 iterations, right? So we need an additional iteration and move it to the next iteration. So the total delivery, the delivery of all of the remaining work will take 31 iterations, right? Release calculation, we were also asked to calculate for the next release that the product owner has prioritized. So the release backlog had 276 story points, and we are going to use the same average velocity, and which gives us 11.5 iterations. Now we know that we don't do iterations in this fragmented manner. So whatever work is required in that 0.5 will actually be rounded up to 12 story points, right? So we know that these points are going to require one more iteration. So the release will also take 12 iterations over here. And so in this case, we know that A, 3112 is the correct answer. And the rest of the answers, 30 and 11 are actually rounding down. 31 and 11 is 31 iterations, but the release backlog needs 12. And 19 and 12, again, these are miscalculated, right? Okay, let us look at question number 6. A project team has completed the first major deployment of a centralized supplier onboarding platform for a global manufacturing organization. Okay, they've delivered something. The deployment was approved for one regional business unit before expanding to other regions. During the first executive review after launch, the regional procurement director says the platform is not acceptable because supplier risk scoring, automated compliance alerts, multi-language onboarding support are not available. So some functionalities are not available. So they have, they have some complaints around it. Several business users also claim these capabilities were discussed during early workshops and expected in first deployment, right? So things that are missing, people are claiming that we did have a discussion on them and they should have been a part of the solution. They should have been a part of our delivery. What should the project manager do first in order to address the issue? Evaluate the missing features with the client and develop a plan to include them in the next 9-month project phase. No, we don't need them in the next 9 months. If we need them now, right? Review the project plan to determine if missing features were part of the original scope or if they were added later. Yes, that is the first thing we do whenever any stakeholder complaint comes in regarding our scope is review the plan, review the scope plan, right? Review the original scope, right? And validate if whatever concerns they are raising are actually were those requirements were actually documented during the planning stage, right? Request an additional funding in order to reduce the current release cycle timeline so the team can deliver value sooner. Even if additional funding is released, it doesn't guarantee that the release timeline will be reduced, or and this is not even about a timeline complaint, right? It is a complaint about some scope that's been missed, some requirements that's been missed in the first place. Restart the project by implementing an agile lifecycle and incorporate the creation of a MVP. This does not, the situation does not call for a project methodology change, and we actually do not need an MVP over here, right? We just need to go back and validate the scope, right? The project manager should compare the stakeholders' complaint against the broader project management plan, the scope baseline, the requirements documentations, any change logs, right? If they requested a change at some point, then it should have been documented in the change log, and the acceptance criteria before they can propose any kind of action steps and all of that, right? We've already discussed the distractors, so we can move to the next question. Okay, let's look at this question. A project manager is leading a project for a company preparing the first limited launch of a new digital device. The product owner has ordered the backlog around the smallest usable release agreed with the business stakeholders. During a late readiness discussion, the project manager learns that an external party must review an early working version before the service can be made available. Okay? The work needed for this review was not included in the current launch definition, and the team is already focused on completing the committed backlog items. What should the project manager do? Okay, let's look at the responses. Speak with the product owner to prioritize compliance activities in the backlog to submit a prototype to the regulatory body. Identify the missing requirements, prioritize the missing regulatory work directly into the backlog, and assign the work to the team. Okay. Research the launch of the product until the team can produce a prototype for inspection as required by the regulatory body. Create a new MVP definition that contains the scope requirements for the required prototype and prioritize it with the team. Okay, so let us look. I know we are getting mixed responses for this. What are we going to do in this case? The first thing that we are going to do, we know that mandatory items, if the question is indicating or if the answer is consistently indicating, the responses are indicating some mandatory requirements, some compliance related requirements, then you know that, okay, the external review that is need to be done is a mandatory launch conditions, right? Any newly discovered requirement, any new work that comes in within an agile project should pass through the backlog channel, right? Anything that comes in internally, externally, any technological risk that needs to be addressed, any mandatory requirements that needs to be done, everything passes through the product backlog, right? So in this case, the PM is going to, or the Scrum Master, the project manager is going to discuss it with the product owner and prioritize in the backlog and submit a prototype to this regulatory body. The other ones, identify the missing requirements, prioritize the missing regulatory work directly into the backlog and assign the work to the team. Project manager should like never ever prioritize the backlog items. We know that he does not have the authority to do that, right? And it is always good practice to have the PO involved in discussions, and it is the PO's authority to only the PO is authorized to prioritize work in the backlog, no matter what kind of work it is, even if it's compliance work, even if it's mandatory work, right? You're not going to bypass them, right? Reschedule the launch of the product until the team can produce a prototype for inspection as required by regulatory body. Maybe, yes, Rafi?
I just want to know, it was not mentioned, it is mentioned that, yeah, it was mentioned that it was not included in the prior backlogs.
Yes.
If it had been included, we would have gone for this option. I initially tick marked this, right? Then I decided to change my. Can you please elaborate as it was not already incorporated in the previous backlog?
Sorry, I didn't quite get your question. Could you repeat that?
It is mentioned in the last line, the work needed for this review was not included in the current launch definition. So
Yes,
it was
yes,
not in the backlog.
yes.
That's what I'm.
Yes, it was not in the backlog, and since it is a mandatory requirement, and in agile environments, we know that it's not necessary that the backlog is going to be staying the same all the time, or the new requirements won't come in, right? So this is a mandatory requirement that has come in, so we need to prioritize it, right?
I just want to know.
Hmm.
We need to add this item in the backlog to prioritize it. No, it wasn't
Yes,
there already.
yes.
That's what I'm saying.
We will add it to the backlog, definitely. We will add it, but see, what is wrong with option B over here is that the project manager is identifying the missing requirements. That is okay, fine. That is also, but he is prioritizing the missing regulatory work directly into the backlog. The project manager does not have the authority to prioritize it into the backlog and assign the work to the team, right? The PM, we know, in pure agile scenarios, according to the strict textbook definition, cannot prioritize and does not assign work to the team. So these are the two things that are wrong. He can, like, place it in
Okay,
the
got
backlog,
your point.
have that discussion with the PO, add the team to it, right? The team development team can add to the backlog. The sometimes in scenarios you will see that even the project manager is adding to the backlog. Up till that point, it is acceptable, right? But they cannot, the PM cannot prioritize, any team member cannot prioritize, right? So that does not happen in any agile framework. It's the product owner's prerogative to prioritize, right? Okay, does that make sense, Rafi?
Yes, ma'am. I understood. So it is implied that when we say product owner needs to prioritize compliance, it means that he has to include those items in the backlog.
Yes,
That's implied.
it is implied, right?
Understood.
It is implied, right? So in this case, the best option would be that the project manager speaks with the PO and helps the all of the team prioritize the add it to the backlog. The PO will then prioritize that work, right? Create a new MVP definition that contains the scope requirements for the prototype and prioritize the scope with the team. No, this is not the first step you're going to take, right? You're first going to talk to the PO, have the discussion, see the impact, estimate it, prioritize it, and that maybe this comes in as the next step. And I believe it's not going to be an MVP in any case over here in that question. Let us look at question number 8. Let us look at this question. A project manager is leading a data migration project for a financial services organization. At the start of the project, there are 9 identified stakeholders included in the communication plan. After a regulatory audit requirement is added to the project scope, 4 additional stakeholders from compliance and risk management are added, right? So to begin with, we had 9 stakeholders, and now we have 4 stakeholders. How many additional communication channels? We are talking about communication channels. We are not talking about the stakeholder count over here. How many additional communication channels does the project manager now have to manage, right? 4, 36, 42, or 78, right? For calculating communication channels, there's a standard formula, and this formula goes like this. Let me point it out. Okay. So n into n minus 1 over 2. N over here is the number of stakeholders, right? So we know we had originally we had 9 stakeholders, right? So for 9 stakeholders, we would have 9 into 8 over 2, that is 36 channels. And we added like new stakeholders, right? 13 new stakeholders, and okay, 13 into 12 divided by 2 is 78 channels. So now, like the total adding, because we have total stakeholders, now 78 minus 36 would be 42. So how many additional channels we need is given by a difference in the from the total and the original ones, right? So 42 different communication channels are needed. And the rest are like just very inaccurate calculations. Okay, let us move to question number 9. A project manager, most of the people have gotten this correct. A project manager is leading a claims processing automation project in a matrixed organization. The solution is scheduled to enter the final user acceptance testing in 4 weeks. During a cross-functional readiness review, the test lead reports that previously resolved defects have appeared after recent configuration changes, and the number of failed regression tests has increased across 2 consecutive builds. The development leads explains that the team is deliberately accepting this pattern. What they are doing, they are deliberately accepting these defects and failed tests. Because late-stage fixes often create temporary instability, and delaying the new development could affect the planned release date. So they are more concerned about the release date and making any changes late into the development. Functional managers are also pressuring their assigned team members to finish the remaining features before addressing the recurring failures, right? So we clearly know that it's a matrix organization and there's a pressure from functional managers as well, right? What should the project manager do in this case? We've got 4 options. Update the work breakdown structure and extend the durations in the project schedule to allow more development time. Direct the team to continue development to avoid missing the deadline, noting the risk has been mitigated. Examine the quality metrics to determine if the project is complying with the documented quality requirements. Submit a change request through the change control process to extend the deadline, allowing more time for development. In this case, we clearly saw that, okay, some defects are coming in and some regression tests are being failed. Again, this is a quality issue, right? And the team it may have some pressure from functional managers. Okay, that's correct. It's a matrix organization and everything. But what is the best action step the project manager could take in this case, right? What they are going to do is they are going to see that what were the quality metrics that were predefined quality metrics to see if the project is still compliant to the documented quality expectations, right? The PM should not straight away come under the pressure of functional managers or accept the verdict of the development lead that it's normal and it should be accepted. And as a process, control quality is part of a very important part of delivering on quality expectations, right? So the project manager is going to support the control quality process, right? They're going to monitor and record any quality results and see if, like, everything works in place and no quality requirements are compromised. If we just continue to develop, we are going to miss that quality benchmarks, right? And those quality benchmarks will also most probably be a part of your acceptance criteria as well, right? So we will use metrics. We will use go back and look at the documented quality criteria, and we will take the action steps. We will do the work required to meet those quality expectations, right? Uh, Update the work breakdown structure and extend the duration. No. Why would you update the work breakdown structure over here? You're just, it's defines the scopes and deliverables. This is not the first thing that you're going to go to when you are looking at some quality related problems. The first thing that you need to go and look at is what were the quality requirements, right? What were the quality metrics we had to align to, we had to work towards, right? That's the first thing that you're going to direct the team to continue development to avoid missing the deadline, noting that the risk has been mitigated. No, the risk has not been mitigated. It's just looming all over the project, right? Submit a change request through the change control process to extend the deadline, allowing for more development time. See, this is not the first best step that they're going to take. He or she will first have to go and look at how and if the quality is being compromised, right? Then to fix it, to accommodate the quality expectations, to fulfill the quality metrics. If any change is required, then they may submit a change control request to allow for more time for development. This is not the first step they are going to take. Okay, question number 10, please. The project budget is $200,000. You have completed 40% worth of work. However, you should have completed 50% of the work by now. The total money spent so far is $90,000. What is the project status? Select two answer choices, right? It's under budget, over budget, behind schedule, ahead of schedule, or project status could not be determined at all, right? See, this is an earned value management EVM calculation question. We know that the total budget at completion, BAC, is the $200,000. Earned value of this work is like, would be 40% of the total budget at completion, and planned value should be the 50% of the budget at completion. And the actual cost, you've like the cost incurred so far is $90,000, right? And we are required to infer, we are required to make an analysis that how is the project performing, right? And you have to select two choices, right? Okay. In this case, we are going to perform EVM calculations first, and then we'll come to select that, okay, why A and C are the best options over here. We know that according to question, 200,000 is the budget at completion. 40%, which is the earned value, would be $80,000. Planned value would be 50% of 200,000, which is $100,000. And the actual cost is $90,000, right? We have to figure out the cost status and the schedule status to be able to figure out whether a project is over budget or under budget. Is it ahead of schedule or behind schedule, or like the last option said that, okay, it cannot be estimated from the given data that we have, right? So how are we going to calculate the cost value? We are going to calculate through the cost variance formula, EV minus AC, which is in which earned value was earned value was 80,000 and actual cost incurred was 90,000. So it's a negative number you are getting, negative $10,000. So since CV is negative over here, the project is over budget, right? And we'll then look at the schedule variance, right? We know that schedule variance is given by EV minus PV, right? EV in this case remains 80,000, and we know the planned value was $100,000. This is what we calculated, right? And this is still giving us a negative 20,000, right? So since the schedule variance is also negative 20,000, that directly points to the fact that the project is behind schedule, right? Therefore, we can say that A and C are the correct choices in this case. And it's not under budget because the team earned value was 80,000, and the team has actually incurred 90,000 in terms of actual cost. Spending is higher than the earned value, ahead of schedule. Not a possibility. We know that we should have completed 50% of the work, but only 40% of the work is complete. That is, you don't even need to do the math over here, right? In this case, some options, guys, you will be able to eliminate very like in a very basic understanding. We're just looking at the numbers and knowing it intuitively. Okay, if we should have completed 50%, but we have only completed 40% of the work, then we are behind schedule. Project schedule status cannot be determined. It could be because we've got all the values in there. Okay, question number 11. Okay, we have a couple of D's and some C's as well. A project manager joins a digital transformation project that is already in execution. The team has just completed the pilot rollout of a new employee self-service portal for one business unit. The next workshop is scheduled to prepare other departments for the wider rollout. During the workshop, while several department heads state that they were unaware the pilot had already reduced HR ticket volume and improved employee response times. So some information did not reach them. They are concerned that important benefits and adoption results were not communicated to affected stakeholders, right? So they are now concerned that that communication did not happen, right? So this is a situation in which something negative has already happened, right? What should the project manager do to resolve this issue? We know that this is an issue, right? Even if it's stated what should the project manager do to resolve this problem, we should we should have had the same context. A, escalate the issue to the steering committee because the sponsor should have informed the stakeholders. No, why should the sponsor inform the stakeholders? It's the job of the project manager to do so. Escalate the issue to the sponsor. First was the steering committee. You don't escalate to steering committees right away. Escalate the issue to the sponsor because the question came from some of the senior stakeholders. Just because senior stakeholders are asking you for some verification or some reason or like some proof or whatever, or they're complaining to you, that does not mean you can't deal it on your own as a project manager, right? This has not reached to an escalation point situation, right? So you're not going to go to the sponsor just because the senior stakeholders are involved. Record the issue in the issue log, discuss it with the change manager, and update the communications management plan. Let's park it out for a minute and look at the last one. Record the issue in the register, review the stakeholder matrix, and update the risk management plan. This is like, three different things happening in like three different directions. Record the issue in the register. What register? Like the artifact for issue is the issue log. We don't record issues in risk registers. Review the stakeholder matrix. This is not an issue of engagement, right? And you're not trying to assess their attitude. It's simply that some stakeholders are complaining that they did not receive this information, right? So the end users, the concerned stakeholders did not receive, they were in dark, they did not, that information did not reach them. So it's not a stakeholder engagement issue. And update the risk management plan. This is an issue, not a risk. Why would you update the risk management plan? And even it had been an issue, maybe the first step would be like go into the risk register and record it and everything, right? But it's clearly an issue, right? So what we are going to do is record the issue in the issue log, discuss it with the change manager that, okay, why was, if this change happened and it was approved and it was rolled out, when was it done? And then, why was it not communicated to these stakeholders, and update the communications management plan to include the stakeholders. So all the whatever future stakeholders, future benefits, any updates, any any kind of related information is shared with the related stakeholders at the right time, right, in the right format. That's what communications management plan is all about. We have discussed the other distractors, so let us move to the next part of the very last question of our session. A project manager is calculating the contingency reserve for identified project risk. Okay, and the risk register includes the following. So they are showing you the portion of a risk register, right? It could be a risk, it could be an opportunity. We know that positive and negative risk exist, and the probability of those risks occurring and the impact of those risks occurring, right? So there's a supplier delay, probability is 35%, and impact is negative 80,000. Regulatory rework, it's definitely a threat, 20% probability, and if it occurs, then minus $150,000 impact. Automation efficiency is definitely a positive risk, right? Your automation becomes more efficient. It's 30% probability, and the impact is 60,000, right? Positive $60,000. And testing environment failure, 15% probability into 15% probability, and the impact is negative 100,000, right? What is the next EMV exposure? What is the net expected monetary value exposure? We've seen in our instructional classes that EMV, earned monetary value, is kind of a quantitative risk measurement technique, right? Quantitative risk assessment technique. And we have a formula for calculating earned value management. Let us dive into the solution. See, earned value management is the formula for EMV is probability into impact scores, right? So we know that the percentages in this case are the probabilities, and the impact is the actual dollar numbers that have been listed in the chart, right? So probability into impact. If you do that, like if you use this calculation for every one of the risks listed in the chart, right, EMV is equals to probability into impact, right? And impact would definitely be in some kind of a score format, some numbers, right? So for every single thread, right, we know that, okay, supply delay 35% of negative 80,000. Why? Because it's a negative, it's a negative risk, a threat, and 28,000 is the value. Then for regulatory rework, negative 30,000. In the same way, 20% of minus 150. Automation efficiency, positive risk, right? Probability into impact, 30% of 60,000, 80, right? And testing environment failure, 15% of minus 100,000, $15,000. Again, this is a negative risk. And net EMV is calculated by adding all them up, like the total, right? So we know that we need to add all of these negative risks and one positive risk, and that amounts to minus negative, minus $55,000. So in this case, A is the correct response. It's like very basic mathematics. Don't get confused by the charts and everything. Just remember, and for EMV, expected monetary value, whenever you're going to calculate, the negative risks will have a minus attached to the number, and positive risk will be simply plus, or maybe there, even if there's no sign, you know that it is a positive number, right? So we've calculated the EMV uh, for this particular scenario. Remember, if the higher the EMV, positive EMV scores are, the better it is for the project, right? Negative EMV scores are not good for projects. If that's the amount of risk involved, that maybe you want to rethink about your scope, or even about the project's viability and feasibility in the first place, right? So the distractors over here are minus 73,000, which is, if this, you would reach this total figure if you only factor in the threats, right? And it would exclude the positive risk from this calculation. C factors in only the positive risk and excludes all of the negative risk. 390 is like, it does not equal to minus 390,000. It's like a figure that is way off, right? One of the least correct answers, right? The most incorrect ones. So yeah, I hope this today's session was helpful. Project monitoring and controlling and predictive in agile accounts for about, you could say, 25% of the exam. Now, this does not mean that 25% of the exam will be calculation based, but anything that any actions you are supposed to do as a project manager, anything that you need to factor in, anything that you need to refactor, like quality related, risk related, process related, stakeholder related, and you like during planning and execution phases, anything you need to keep an eye on, right? Anything you need to audit, all falls into the monitoring and control areas of the project management. And calculations definitely are going to be a very, like, a minor part of it. You won't get, like, remember, 25%, by 25% monitoring and controlling, I do not mean that 25% of the exam is going to be like, mathematics based. Maybe like 3, 4, 5 to 6 questions, like 2, 3 EMV questions, 1, 2 velocity related questions and stuff like that. 6 to 7 questions at max, accounting for all kind of mathematics, communication channels, EMV, velocity, cycle times, all of that, right? So thank you so much for your time. And those of you who are appearing within the week, all the best for the exam. And those of you who will be able to join us next Saturday, looking forward to it. Have a good day. Bye-bye.